Rav Joseph Soloveitchik, the leading modern Orthodox thinker of the 20th century, said in his book, Kol Dodi Dofek, that the high point of the Torah comes in this parsha. He said the most important moment of the whole Torah isn't the moment that Abraham is called to go on a journey, though that's important. And it isn't the moment that Moses confronts Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go." It isn't even the moment when the sea splits and the whole community witnesses the greatest miracle ever seen by human eyes. It isn't even the moment when God gives the commandments at Mount Sinai. Rav Soloveitchik says the greatest moment of the whole Torah is when the people assemble at the end of this parsha, and Moses says to them, "You have now heard what is involved in being a Jew. Are you in or are you out?" And the people respond back, "Na'aseh v'nishma," we are in, we are here, we say yes. It's the signature on the dotted line, it's the handshake, it's the wedding. It's the moment when we and God say, okay, we're in this together. And Torah is going to be the way in which we connect and speak to one another. This is the greatest moment in Jewish history. Except some of our sages weren't so sure. Some of our sages weren't so sure about this moment because they said a contract, a covenant, an agreement, in order to be entered into, needs to be entered into freely. And consider the position of the Israelites at the base of Mount Sinai. They had just witnessed God demolish the most powerful empire in the world with water turning to blood, with hail from the sky and locusts and darkness so thick you can touch it and a curse of death on all the firstborn. You're going to say no to that? And then they left Egypt and they witnessed God splitting a sea in half, allowing them to walk batoch hayam bayabasha, in the midst of the waves on dry land, and then crashing down on the heads of their remaining enemies. You're going to say no to that? And then the people get to the base of Mount Sinai, and we read last week, the mountain was covered in smoke and fire, in thunder and lightning, and the booming sound of 1,000 unseen shofrots. In the end of this week's parsha, just before the people say yes, Moses is called to make a sacrifice, to take an animal, to slit its throat, to fill a bowl with the blood of that animal, to pick it up over the heads of the people, and this is going to get gross, guys, splash it out on the congregation in order to say we have made a blood promise with one another. At that moment, after witnessing all of that, when Moses says, "Are you in or you out?" the people are going to say, "What exactly?" The people are going to say yes. Because, by the way, also, they're in the middle of a barren desert. I almost said God-forsaken, but God-seriously infused desert with no food and no water. So they turn their back on that God, and this is the end of their story. The rabbis, in one of the most daring passages in the whole Talmud, say that it was like God picked up Mount Sinai and held it over the people's heads, floating there in the air, and said, "You can choose to accept my Torah, or I will bury you here." Thinking about God like Vito Corleone and Moses like his consigliere, making an offer the people can't refuse, is not exactly a comfortable notion. Our whole Jewish tradition is predicated on this idea of covenant, this idea that we entered into a promise together with one another. But what happens if this promise, if this covenant, if this marriage was a shotgun wedding. What happens to us, the great-great-grandchildren of those who made that promise? What does that mean for our relationship with God if we never had a choice to begin with? That's a bit of a scary question to consider. And so the rabbis say the true covenantal moment doesn't actually take place at Mount Sinai. It takes place millennia later during the holiday, everybody knows my favorite holiday that's coming up, of Purim. It's during the story of Purim, a story in which there are no miracles, in which God is conspicuously absent. The only book in the whole Hebrew Bible that doesn't mention God is the book of Esther. It's in that moment when the people truly have no one looking over their shoulder and no one to rely on but each other, that they, the rabbis say, kimu v'kiblu, that they chose to uphold and to accept upon themselves this covenant forevermore. You can't compel people to be Jewish. You can't compel people to be a part of this tradition. You can't hang a mountain over their heads. It doesn't work. To be a part of this people, we have to, each of us, individually and together, opt in. We have to choose. We have to take a look at this Torah, this 3,000-year legacy of life and of learning, of debate and of questions, of striving for tikkun and tzedakah, for repair and for justice. And we have to say, I see that and I want that. I choose in. I want to say to our three amazing B'nai Mitzvah, you get a tremendous amount of credit for what you did today. But this was always expected of you. You were always going to become B'nai Mitzvah. The real test of your Jewish life starts now. It starts if you continue to choose in. If you continue to prioritize learning, if you continue to prioritize Shabbat, if you continue to prioritize community, when the mountain of a double B'nai Mitzvah is no longer hanging over your head, will you still opt in and say, this is my people, this is my home, this is my legacy, and I want to place it at my center? I want to say to our amazing USY double contingent here that you, most of you, come from homes where Judaism is in the air and in the water, not all, but most, where it is as natural as breathing to be a part of Jewish community. And in 1, 2, 3, 4 years tops, you're out on your own. And the question will be, don't say that right now, it's true, and it's coming. And the question will be, when you have the freedom to be anything, will you still choose to be a Jew? When you have the freedom to be anything, to do anything, to prioritize your time however you want, will this choice still be one that you're willing to make? And it's not just a question for our youth, it's a question for all of us. Because there is no one hanging a mountain over any of our heads, wherever we are in life. We have to be the ones every single time we show up in a building like this, every single time we sit down to a Shabbat meal or celebrate a holiday or open a book or give to a person in need, we are choosing again and again to say, I'm in. I'm re-upping my membership in this covenant. I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because this is a wise and wonderful way to live. The story that we told about ourselves since our founding is that God came to us and chose us. Didn't choose us to be better. Didn't choose us, God knows, to live an easier life. But chose us by giving us a gift. By giving us a Torah to live by and a mission to live out. Our story has been that we were chosen. Now it's time to return the favor. We are not just a chosen people. We are called to be, in every single day, in every single action, a choosing people. And I hope that you will continue to make Jewish choices. And I hope that you will continue to make Jewish choices. And I hope that all of us will continue to live this legacy, because we have so much work left to do in the world, so much healing and repair and love to bring. And Judaism, in turn, has so much to offer to make our lives richer and deeper, more wise and more connected. We once were chosen, but we have to choose every single day. Shabbat Shalom.